Dobrodošli u COREdialog, podcast dobre prakse. Od praktičara za praktičare. Pričamo o iskustvima, učenjima i metodama koje nas vraćaju kući. Moje ime je Marko Varat i u ovoj epizodi Marko Kovač i ja ponovno smo ugostili Toma Richtera, učitelja joge i jogičkog disanja. U ovoj epizodi razgovaramo o disanju, raznim metodama disanja, te kako reprogramiranje i uspostavljanje pravilnog i prirodnog obrazca disanja utječe na cijeli naš sustav. Ova epizoda COREdialoga je na engleskom, pa ću i Toma predstaviti na engleskom. Tom Richter is a teacher of breathwork and Ashtanga Vinyasa Yoga, a dynamic movement-based form of yoga. Based in Zagreb, he shares his experience of 20 years studying and practicing yoga and holistic health through regular classes at GaiaYoga Shala, yoga teacher training courses with his life partner Sandra, as well as workshops and various online programs. Tom is enthusiastic about increasing our awareness about the power of breathing and developing our ability to create more health and daily joy. In this work, he loves combining findings from Western science and Eastern teachings and traditions, guiding you through simple yet powerful techniques that anybody can apply to relieve stress, relieve pain, sleep better, and become the best version of themselves in all areas of life. Uživajte u epizodi s Tomom Richterom koju smo nazvali The Art and Science of Conscious Breathing.
Hello everyone. Today we are again in English because our guest today is Tom Richter. Tom Richter is a teacher of Ashtanga Yoga and breathing. So today we are going to talk about breathing and yoga. Yeah, last time when we were talking with Tom, we touched upon his own path and his own life practice. And today we are going to expand on the topics that we were mentioning last time. Yeah, that's it. Welcome, Tom.
Thank you, Marco.
It's nice to
Thank
have
you, both of you, Marco. And it's great to be back. I'm really excited to be back and excited to continue our conversation. And yeah, always happy to talk to you guys.
Yeah.
It's good to have you here. And I'm eager to dive into the topic of breathing with you because I learned so much from you in recent years about breathing in general. And just to give some color to the whole story to people, actually I approached you maybe 3 years ago or 4 years ago, something like that. And that was after I had coronavirus. And my breathing a little bit deteriorated, which I noticed especially when I was going to the pool for my swimming practice. And I wanted to improve my breathing with swimming in general. And also I was interested in how breathing affects my meditation practice. And I also wanted to deepen that. So that was the first reason why I approached you as a breathing instructor and breathing teacher. And then I learned how little I know actually, because I was looking at breathing as primarily through breath work. And then through working with you, I realized that I didn't even scratch the surface of what breathing can offer. So I was interested in speaking with you again in order to actually dive deeper into the subject of breathing and how it influences our life in general, because I think it's really valuable thing that you have to offer through the programs that you are offering otherwise.
Thank you.
So without further ado, now it's on you. I'm not sure where will be the best place to start.
Yeah.
So please continue.
Okay. Well, breathing is, as I like to call it, the foundation of everything else that you want to improve in life. Because usually, unless somebody has a hard time breathing, nobody wakes up and says, I want to change my breathing, because it's such a unconscious process that we just take for granted until it's not working anymore properly. In fact, lung capacity is one of the main determinators for longevity. So all the other problems that might arise, which cut your life short, are somehow related to a diminishing lung capacity. And so if we can keep our lung capacity up, everything else will stay better. But then in a second step, because that's already great for a foundation, but to take it even further, breathing affects everything and how we experience life. It's almost like it determines the lens through which we experience life. And I like to use two examples to just connect everyone in their own life to how breathing affects them. One is if you remember the last time you watched a movie and you wanted to cry. And let's say, you're watching a movie with some friends and you're like, oh, I want to cry, but we are together, all the guys. I'm not going to cry now. So what do you do in that moment?
Peel an onion.
You don't want to cry, right? So to recover the idea that you actually have to cry. That's true. Guys, I'm going to get an onion. But no, what usually, at least what I would do is I hold my breath, right? And when I hold my breath, it's like, okay, good. And then after a while, it kind of, okay, just focus on something else, and then it goes away. And now imagine in that very moment where, the movie is whatever's happening, somebody's dying, the dog is dying, and you're like, want to cry. And now in that moment, you're like, right? There's no way you can stop the tears from coming. Like, it's just overwhelmingly coming out. And so now if we go through life, and obviously we learn very early in life that there are certain emotions that are better to be kept inside, certain moments where it's inappropriate to feel certain things. And in those moments we learn that holding the breath and pushing it down helps. And that affects then the way we breathe throughout life. If you have a very tense job where you are consistently holding down certain things that are not appropriate, you're consistently now stopping the breath, stopping the emotion, just to deal with life, and that creates certain tension patterns in your body and certain ways of breathing, certain breathing patterns. So that's one example. The other example that I like to use is, you blow up an air mattress, and you're great. It's a nice day, the sun is shining, you blow up the air mattress. After 5 minutes of pushing the air in, what happens? You get dizzy, right? Why did you get dizzy? Well, you were breathing a lot. So actually, you should feel great, because a lot of breathing could mean you get all this oxygen in. So why do you get dizzy? Because when you breathe more than you need to, yes, you get great amounts of oxygen in, but what you blow out is a lot of carbon dioxide. And so when you have low amounts of carbon dioxide in your body, the oxygen cannot reach certain body parts. The circulation goes down, but also the release of that oxygen into the cells, into all the organs, into your brain, doesn't happen as much. And therefore, you're actually depriving your brain and all the other vital organs of oxygen, and that creates in that very moment dizziness. And nobody would go around breathing as if they are blowing up an air mattress all day long. But if you just breathe 5% too much, 10% too much than what you're needing in that very moment, you're also blowing off too much carbon dioxide. It's just below the threshold where you would notice it. And that might create a problem because we are breathing 10 to 20,000 times a day. We're breathing all the time. And if you're consistently breathing 10% too much, you're consistently blowing off too much carbon dioxide, and that affects the oxygenation of your whole body. It creates the tension in your body. It creates maybe slightly constricted lungs, slightly constricted blood vessels. It consistently deprives a certain amount of circulation to all body parts. And that done over 10 years, 20 years, 30 years, 40 years, 50 years, and so on, creates a problem. Just like 5 minutes of really strong breathing creates an effect, this effect is just taking longer and you don't notice it, but it might contribute to all kinds of diseases. And so breathing is that foundation and affects literally every process of every day. Now, when you want to change that, you could of course say, well, there's this yogic pranayama technique, or there's Wim Hof breathing, or there is 4-7-8 breathing, all these different techniques that are very popular right now that get thrown around like, just do this, you feel better after, or it has some effect on your health. But the problem is, if you have been breathing in a certain way, and I already went into how it affects your attention pattern, your emotional pattern, and all of that. Whether you now go to a yoga class, to a fitness class, whatever you want to change, or you just adopt a certain breathing technique, you will use the breathing pattern that you have now developed in your daily life and just place that technique on top. So, for example, if I'm a chest breather, I'm breathing somehow like this, not down here in my belly, and now I, let's say, do Nadi Shodhana, the alternate nostril breathing, and I do that will not, like the fact that you're closing one nostril will have a small effect, but the breathing pattern itself will create stress. That way that you're breathing. And so instead of saying, well, use your hands to close your nostrils, a much more powerful change would be to stop moving your chest so much and find your diaphragm, find your belly, expand the belly during the inhalation and release passively through the exhalation. But now you can already notice that's much harder to explain. It's not just, okay, left in, right in, left out, or, Wim Hof, do 20 or 30 fast breaths and then hold your breath. It's becomes subtle. Now, why can't you expand through the belly? Is it creating an emotional response? Is it creating a mental barrier? Or you're just unaware of your body? Is it, if it's emotional, are you afraid of the emotions? Or, so it very quickly becomes deep. And so, like you said, there's a lot of nuance to it. And how do you now share that with a lot of people that maybe are just looking for the technique, like I was just saying. Oh yeah, I will try this 4-7-8. Oh, I will try the alternate nostril breathing. It's simple, and we are usually just looking for that one quick fix that maybe is a little cool, like Wim Hof. Wim Hof is very attractive to a lot of maybe guys that are like, yeah, let's do it. Cold immersion. I feel great after, but there's no patience to actually go into the technique. Or the busy mom that just looks for that one technique that makes her survive the day because she's already too stressed. She doesn't maybe have the time, or she thinks she doesn't have the time to really build that foundation.
Yeah. I mean, maybe that can be used as a motivation. Mm-hmm. If someone does, for example, Wim Hof, and then feels the effects immediately after, as it usually is the case, then that might give an idea to that person. Wow, this is powerful. Mm-hmm. Let me learn more.
Yeah.
So maybe that's not a bad thing.
No, it's not a bad thing at all.
Yeah.
And and I always say, like, you have to find something that makes you excited about learning something. And that might be, in yoga and movement. Oh yeah, I want to do a handstand. I want to do a headstand. I want to do a back bend, or whatever, looks cool to you. I want to be able to lift up, and balance only on my hands if it's a strength thing, something that makes you go like, yeah, I really would like to be able to do that. Mm-hmm. And then find a technique that invites all the other holistic elements and the breathing and so on.
Yeah. Now when we were mentioning the wrong patterns of breathing, I recalled that my first actually touch with the practice was somewhere in the 5th grade, I found a book about yoga, and I was, reading through it, and there were some pranayamas, and I tried to do something that was described in a book.
Mm-hmm.
And I noticed that basically I had paradoxical breathing. So when I was breathing in, my belly would
Yes. So paradoxical breathing is that thing where you kind of the belly goes in as you inhale, and then
with the inhale my belly goes in, and with the exhale my belly goes out.
Yeah.
And I noticed this is not how you should breathe, because it was described differently.
Mm-hmm.
So I tried, to reverse, and it was very, very hard to reverse the pattern. And I noticed that when I was doing it, I did it a little bit more with too much effort, maybe, because it was very strong. And I noticed that I had this huge frustration moments afterwards. So then I was doing it only once or twice a week, because I couldn't handle the moments of frustration afterwards, because it pulled something that was really, crazy.
Yeah.
But this was my first, touch with actually breathing practice.
Yeah. And just like you mentioned, because breathing is so much connected to who we are, like how we embody ourselves, that when you change your breathing, it feels weird, it feels scary for some, it feels uncomfortable, it feels like there's certain processes that are changed that make you go, I'm not sure about that. And because it affects us so deeply. So, for example, in order to breathe diaphragmatically, right? Our diaphragm is this huge dome-shaped muscle that is around the whole lower part of the ribs. And in its relaxed position, it's the biggest dome. And then as you engage it, it flattens down and draws the lungs down. And as the lungs get drawn down, they open up, more volume is created in the lungs, and by that pressure change, air's drawn in. And then as you release the diaphragm, the air goes out. Because now, again, the volume gets smaller, and that pushes the air out. And the diaphragm it's the most efficient muscle of breathing. So if you use your diaphragm, it's a very efficient process. The air gets drawn in strongly, deeply into the deepest tissues of the lungs, where the oxygen exchange and the carbon dioxide exchange actually happens. If you don't use your diaphragm, you use the accessory muscles for breathing that help breathing, but they are very inefficient because they're just there to support if you only use them.
Which muscles are those?
So, for example, the muscles between your ribs that open the ribs a little bit. Then, anything that lifts the chest, so a little bit your back muscles, even your scalenes and your sternocleidomastoid muscle that lifts the whole rib cage and the collarbones up. All those are supporting muscles. And but yeah, wait, I'm going too far now. So my point was diaphragm. If the diaphragm moves nicely, it massages every time it moves. It massages all the internal organs, and it actually supports even the heart to not have to pump as strongly. So it has an effect on blood pressure, on the heartbeat, on the heart rate. And now, if you're now all of a sudden let's cut back one more time. And so if you're using a diaphragm, you have this very strong inhalation, and the exhalation is completely passive, which means that during the inhalation, your sympathetic nervous system is slightly activated, and during the exhalation, the parasympathetic nervous system, your rest and digest, gets activated. And that creates a nice balance. And you could even exhale a little longer than you inhale, and that supports that balance because it brings you down. So if during stressful situations you have that pattern, you can stay balanced. But if we have learned during stress to stay in that sympathetic response and with the chest breathing, and we emphasize the inhalation, we get more and more sympathetic, more and more agitated. And so we go way out of balance.
Yeah, we go the different way.
Yeah. But we get used to that. We get used to the adrenal response. We get used to high cortisol. We get used to high heart rate. So when we reverse it, we first have to actually give ourselves that space to check in and notice that there's a different way, and then actually release into that parasympathetic response. And that takes effort and that takes intention. And that's more than, okay, I'm just going to do that for 2 minutes. And in fact, it takes more in the sense of, okay, I'm actually committing myself to learning this new way of breathing and learning to make it happen in all parts of life. And that's why I also went away from teaching, let's say, once a week we have a breathing class in the Shala, which I found highly ineffective. Because even if people come, first people have to come to an only breathing class, which may even sound like boring. But then you go there to that class, you may feel great after because you breathe now for an hour in a different way, or half an hour, which is actually hard to breathe for 1 hour with focus. But then, for 1 week, you go back to your old breathing pattern, and now what? Just like with movement, if you breathe in a certain way for 10, 20, 30 hours a day, 24 hours a day, and then, once a week you have 1 hour of different breathing, not much is changing. You might get an idea of, oh yeah, there's a different way, and oh yeah, okay, there's a lot of details that I'm kind of trying to work on, but not really getting it. But now, the new way that I found that is much more effective is, okay, you have 10 weeks of a course. You sign up for the course, so you're actually willing to engage with it. And now it's actually delivered online, not because I believe that in person, somewhere being together, of course I can get you more details. I could put my hand on your belly, or, you put your hand here and I can put my hand on top and now put a soft pressure and say, now inhale into that pressure. It's amazing. It gives much more, okay, I feel it, right? But in terms of twice a week, there's a Zoom session, and now you show up and we learn one detail. May that just be lying on the back, breathing into your hand or breathing into a cushion that you put on top, and now actually seeing that move. And now after 10, 15 minutes of doing that, now you learn a little bit about what happens in your body. So what you just experienced now makes even more sense as you see, okay, so, I noticed my heart beating a little differently. I noticed my calm coming up, and maybe I noticed some emotions, whatever it might be. So you make sense of it, you experience it, it's one detail. And now I tell you, okay, now you do that every day in every activity that you start. So let's say after we sit here, we go to the kitchen, we sit down. I first breathe into my belly. I notice how that's happening. And then after 1 minute of doing that, I start eating. And then I go sit in the car, and for a couple of seconds, half a minute, I find that movement again. And then I start driving. I forget about it. Maybe after 10 minutes, I'm like, oh yeah, I lost it. Can I get it back? And okay, I continue doing whatever I'm doing. Next thing, I'm in the office, I'm sitting down. Again, I'm working on it. Sitting down at the bus station. You get the idea. And now you do that for 2-3 days. At the beginning, it might just go away after a couple of minutes. But then, as you keep doing it in every activity throughout the day, it becomes a new pattern. Not perfect, but it's a new pattern. It becomes a thing that might even continue happening even if your focus is somewhere else. And you start feeling, oh yeah, somehow I didn't get angry, even though my husband or wife just told me something that I usually get upset about. Or somebody cut me off on the street and I acknowledged how I was getting a little emotional about it, angry even, but I'm handling myself much better. So after a couple of days, half a week, you get one new detail. And you come with questions because you noticed certain things happening or not happening. Yeah, that didn't work. Tom, can you tell me what? Okay, so maybe there's some pelvic alignment that maybe needs to be different. Check if you can kind of push your lower back a little bit and lift your heart. Notice if your shoulders are pulled up. Notice if whatever, just like breathing through your nose, I can do, and I feel a lot of resistance in my nose, and I can do, and even though the nose is as open as it was 2 seconds ago, I feel no resistance in my nose. So you get a lot of these details, and the more comes from a question, the more open you are to actually hear the answer, hear the detail. And now you hear a detail and get some practice and experience and knowledge every half week. So you have that combination of just one detail, putting it into action into all parts of your lives, and also knowing, okay, in 3-4 days, Tom will ask me, did you do it? What did you experience? What's new? Do you have questions? So you are committed to actually doing it, because after the second time of not really doing it, you feel stupid and like, okay, now I'm in this course, I really should do it. And so doing that over 10 weeks, you get a lot of details and you learn what I teach it as 6 principles of good breathing, of conscious breathing, that you can apply in everything you do, whether you're sleeping, whether you're running, going for a jog,
Can you tell us here what the 6 principles are?
Yes. So first principle, and you can even go along, is nice alignment, joyful alignment, as I like to call it. So, you reach your sit bones down, your pelvis is nicely aligned, meaning you're not collapsing back, but you're also not kind of tilting too much forward. Then the heart is open, relax your belly, release any unnecessary tension. Then reach back through the back of your head. So there's this mild engagement along your spine, and exhale, broaden your shoulders and reach through your fingers, right? So we don't want kind of stiff hands, but we want kind of movable hands. Neck is free. Then top of that reaches up, and as you exhale, relax your face. So that's principle 1, joyful alignment. And what that does is it creates the foundation now to breathe. Because if you're collapsed or if you're overly engaged, your diaphragm cannot move properly. And now comes principle 2, breathe diaphragmatically all the time. Which doesn't necessarily mean you have to always completely expand your belly. Of course, if you're training or whatever, there's some engagement here. But still, the breathing should come from the diaphragm, not from the chest. So also when you're running, when you're swimming, diaphragmatic breathing. Then the third principle is breathe through your nose all the time. Now, of course, when I'm talking to you, I'm breathing out through my mouth, but ideally, I'm breathing in through my nose and then keep talking instead of kind of sucking in the air through my mouth and then continue talking. Then principle 4, rhythmic breathing, which means the rhythm, of course, follows whatever you're doing. So if I'm sitting here, and let's say I'm just sitting here, it's a very slow rhythm. We have the exhalation a little longer. The exhalation is passive. Inhaling. Exhaling a little slower, right? Because, as I said before, the exhalation, parasympathetic response, calming you down, rest and digest. Inhalation engages you. But of course, let's say it's afternoon, I'm a little tired, I don't want to drink a coffee. I might actually inhale a little stronger for 2 minutes and I'm waking up a little more. But for most of us, usually tending to be a little more on the stressed side, work on that exhalation, the quality of exhalation. Principle 5, breathe slowly, which of course is related to the rhythm. And then 6th principle, breathe minimally. meaning always as minimal as possible. Which means if you're running, of course, you will breathe more volume per minute than if you are just sitting here on the couch and resting. But always minimally, meaning you almost want to wait for that mild appetite to inhale again. So let's say you're just listening along, right? Or you're listening and you inhale into your belly, exhale passively. And then you just wait, keep the belly relaxed, keep your shoulders relaxed, fingers, neck. You're waiting. And then you feel after maybe 10 seconds, maybe after 15 seconds, this mild tension, like my body wants to inhale. And then you inhale and you exhale. And again, you wait. Right? And obviously that's completely the contrast to, the normal patterns that many of us have. And by, again, bringing all these principles one by one into your life, so you're not trying to get them practiced or getting them into your experience right away, but you start with just checking your posture with everything you do. Then just checking, are you breathing diaphragmatically in everything you do? Then, am I always breathing through your nose? And just by focusing on one thing, you notice, okay, when I'm walking, I start breathing unintentionally through my mouth. It just opens and happens. And that's the moment where you're like, okay, can I do it through my nose? Or I tend to go running twice a week. And after 5 minutes, my mouth goes open. It's just something we do, And now can I do the same through my nose? Okay, something is not working. Okay, I have to slow down. And so on, right? So there's a process behind it. So the principles are always true. That's the great thing. They can be applied to every single thing you do. But it's a process of learning them because they challenge you. You attempt to do them and then you notice, okay, I'm not doing it when I'm presenting. I'm not doing it when I'm running. I'm not doing it when I'm getting stressed. Like, I have to do something. And just, it happens. You don't even notice it. But then, because we are talking about it in the course, you notice it, and then, can I change it? Yeah. And so, that was the 6 principles. That was the answer to that question.
I have so many questions now. I don't know how to Shoot. So now the thing that you described is a process of reprogramming your natural breath, right? Mm-hmm. So there are probably different types of breathing for different types of applications. It's not always, for instance, when I'm doing therapy, body-oriented therapy, we are always trying to breathe through the mouth because the mouth is like, we were said, like emotional breathing. So we are trying to release we are not trying to calm down. Like we are trying to, not always, sometimes we are trying to, of course, come down and relax. But sometimes we are trying to evoke the emotion, the strong emotion. So we are trying to open the mouth, open the throat and breathe intensively through the throat. So just to make clear, so there are different applications of different types of breathing, right? What you described is something that is very appropriate for regular breathing, for some kind of homeostasis, right?
Yes. So it's a big kind of can of worms that you just asked. So let me see how I approach this answer. If you have a particular application or a particular effect you want to reach, you can, for example, breathe through your mouth. What oftentimes happens nowadays, and now I'm generalizing, is I went through therapy, we breathe through the mouth, I feel so much better. Let me do that every day now. Let me do it as my morning practice. It's a problem, right? Because now you're taking that thing and you're completely taking it out of the ritual. Or the safe space that it was meant to be practiced in.
The context.
Because breathing through your mouth takes you maybe out of your balance, but that's what you want in that moment. Same is true maybe for Wim Hof, right? So Wim Hof is hyperventilation, and you breathe. Even the hyperventilation can be done differently, right? I can do, or I can do. It will have a different effect, 30 breaths in the one way or in the other way. I'm not saying one is better than the other. I'm just saying it has different effects. And you will, if you just hear the technique, 30 fast breath in and out, you just use your natural way of doing it, your habitual way of doing it, right? But then actually that should be followed by a long breath hold. So you're not staying in that state of now I'm low in carbon dioxide, right? And so there's also the, you could call it breathing, like trips using your breath, where people lie down and now they are hyperventilating for 20, 30 minutes, which will have that exact effect, what I was talking about, very low levels of carbon dioxide. Your brain will be deprived of oxygen and certain parts of your brain will just shut off, including the part that is important for your ego. So in that moment, your ego shuts off and now stuff happens. You might even convulse, you might have those hyper tension in your body, but then through having a safe space, a teacher that knows what he's doing or she's doing, you can have very amazing effects having that as one, once in a while,
like
doing
a peak
that.
experience.
Peak experience, exactly. But then don't do that every day as, okay, now I want to reproduce that. Or, if you take Wim Hof, and then some people even do it in open water and now they're holding their breath, going into water, now they're passing out, now they're drowning, not good. Right? Which has nothing to do with the Wim Hof method. I think it's just people misreading certain things or just adding their own thing to it because it's amazing and it's cool. And so nothing against any of these techniques. They just have to be properly used in the right context. And so what I'm saying is learn to breathe well 24 hours a day is a very powerful, maybe slightly boring, but a very powerful thing. I mean, boring compared to peak experience, this breathing technique, big group, you're doing crazy things, loud music, that kind of thing. Yeah. Right? Or now I'm going to therapy and my therapist is using a very specific breathing technique. And even, when they do these fast breathing techniques, when you breathe through your nose versus breathing through your mouth involves less of your mind. So if you want to short circuit your mind,
control,
take it out of the picture, maybe breathing through your mouth makes sense, but not as a daily 24-hour practice. And what I'm saying is, if you learn to breathe well 24 hours a day, you're already taking care of a lot of therapy that you might be needing. Because now you're breathing better all the time, and so you learn to get the emotions that constantly come up handled much nicer. And when you get to therapy, let's say, now they come to you and they're calm, they have less of agitation through all of the small things that happen throughout the day. They're very calm because they breathed diaphragmatically in a nice posture, in a joyful alignment, right? Slowly through the nose. Now they come to you. Now they can surrender so much better to whatever you ask them to do. And when they do the, breathing through the mouth, for example, they can really surrender to whatever's coming up now.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. Versus somebody that comes and is like, I don't feel so good. And now, you almost want to first let them breathe for 10 minutes on the lying on the back into their belly. Now they are calm, and now you administer the other breathing technique. And
agreed.
Yeah,
agreed completely. I think that people today, most of us are hooked on intensity.
Yes, exactly.
Because everything is intense. Movies are intense, music is intense,
Yeah.
the whole living is intense.
Yes.
So we are hooked on, catharsis, I can see it in therapy, but everywhere where you look, people are hooked on peak experiences, on intensity, and that kind of program that you lead sounds a bit boring because, every day I just have to, just breathe a little bit and take care of simple things, which is not, evoking any strong emotion, any, peak experience, so it somehow like less attractive in a way because we all want fast food.
Yes, exactly.
And when I'm listening to you, the reprogramming, and I'm interested in your experience because you went through the program. When you do the whole program in a way that you're describing, it seems to me like you are handling many of the things that you have to deal in therapy with. Because when you're talking about, supporting muscles, taking care of the breathing because diaphragm is not work well, it's actually when you look in the therapeutic method. So we want to release those muscles of the tensions and somehow produce flow in the body so that all the tensions are released and actually breathing is back to somehow natural breathing. So we are trying to do it forcefully, let's say, through the therapy with some exercises, pressures or whatever. And this is the slow, in the way that you're describing, you're actually doing it in a very peaceful, relaxed, but it takes longer. But it's actually more efficient because some people went through the therapy, went through some psychedelic or some holotropic breathwork or something, and didn't actually change.
Yeah.
They reached some kind of plateau, some insight or something, and then they get back to the real life and then get back to, regular lifestyle that they live.
Yeah.
So I think it's very important to somehow introduce the education and present it in a way that it really makes change. It's not here to produce an experience, but to bring change to the actual lifestyle.
Yeah, exactly.
I just wanted to comment on this boring part, because in my experience, it might appear maybe initially as boring, but that's very short-lived, this sense of boredom or whatever, because if one does, let's say, some method that lasts for half an hour, some effect is felt immediately, not tomorrow, but immediately. And then if one does it, when I did it for 10, 15, 20 days, very soon on, maybe not even after 10, maybe after 3 days, I realized the first changes in my perception of who I am and in my reaction towards outer triggers that were happening throughout the day. I noticed them maybe after 3 or 4 days. And then gradually, within this mentioned 10 or 20 days, I realized that breathing actually can affect my sense of who I am, really. And how does it feel to be me? And that realization, which was not intellectual realization, which was a really physical, felt experience, actually made me more curious or more interested about breathing. And this boring part went away big time. Because if I summarize it in a way, it actually, if I'm aware of breathing throughout the day, it actually makes me more okay or more satisfied with the moment as it is, without changing the moment itself, or without even changing me in that moment. That's first aspect. And then the second aspect is I realized that with breathing, I can change my, let's say, emotional state, or my, that's connected to physical state, you know. To be very precise, for example, yesterday I wanted to go to my swimming practice, and I wanted to be pumped up, and I wanted to be very, very clear, and I wanted to have a lot of volume in my chest. And when I woke up before meditation, I did Wim Hof, because Wim Hof usually makes me more alert, more like, you know, pumped up, because that's the effect I wanted yesterday. Today I did pranayama, my regular thing, for half an hour before I meditated. And today I'm more calm, because this is the emotion or the feeling I wanted to have. You know, so that's the second aspect. I can influence things. Yeah. But to me, after a while, even more important aspect of it, which maybe looked boring at the very beginning, was this first thing that I mentioned. That I'm okay with whatever is happening. Yeah. You know, and then, you know, with these two things, you know, when one realizes actually that it affects my emotional state when I'm with kids, or when I'm driving, or while making love, or while doing anything, this becomes really interesting. You know, and for example, I'm much more likely to just stay calm and be attentive to my breath when I'm stopping on the traffic light, compared with me like 5 years ago, when I would stop on the traffic light and immediately take my phone just to use these couple of seconds to answer my messages or whatever. Yeah. Which actually gets me more agitated and so on and so on. Yeah. You know, so this little subtle thing is so powerful and can change so many things that very soon on, actually, just to complete this long talk of mine, very soon on, even the things that appear boring at the very beginning become very interesting later on.
Yeah, and it's a huge switch that you are mentioning now. I can resonate with this stopping on the traffic light and turning focus to the breathing instead of something else. I think it's a huge switch in perception of, you know, how you deal with things, because you are with something that is completely basic and natural. It's not coming from the outside. It's not coming.
Yeah. And for example, the other thing, let's imagine smoking. For example, I'm waiting for someone, and I can have 10 minutes of waiting time. I can do a couple of things. I can take my phone and I can just browse through it and be absent, actually be in the content of the phone. Or, for example, I can roll a cigarette and just actually surrender to the pleasure of inhaling the smoke and exhaling the smoke and just breathing, and how pleasurable that is. The third option, which actually came to my life when I started breathing more regularly, in the same way I would enjoy the smoke, for example, I can enjoy the breath, which is after a while even more pleasurable experience, because I simply surrender to this. For example, you mentioned this passive aspect of it during the exhalation, and I can simply watch it. And it's very physical pleasure, actually, just surrendering and enjoying. In the same way, it's like, you know, it really feels good. Yeah. And then in that way, for example, for anyone, I was never a really regular smoker, but anyone who is actually looking for pleasure in something outside of themselves in this way, can actually, when one discovers, my God, I have this pleasure in me all the time, without doing anything. I can be in the bus, I can be in the coffee shop, I can be wherever. This is beautiful.
Yeah. I'm doing it right now, so I'm fighting my addiction with breath. That's actually a very good good example of how we can deal with the stuff.
Yeah, and I mean, usually when we are actually quitting smoking or whichever habit we want to quit, it feels as a discipline.
Yeah.
Now I need to apply some discipline in order to quit this habit that's bad for me or whatever, and that's difficult. Every discipline in that regard is difficult. But when we physically actually realize, oh wow, this feels good. It's a game changer.
Yeah, totally.
It's a game changer.
And it's immediate, right? I mean, you can breathe intentionally for 2 minutes and change your state completely. Now you might say 2 minutes, nothing, right? It's great. So powerful. Within 2 minutes, we can change our state. But here is the challenge for most of us that are not in a kind of practice like this yet, that 2 minutes is like, we are like 5 seconds, and then we need a new spike of, like sliding or a new impulse from the outside. So the trickiness is allowing yourself to be okay with this discomfort that comes up when you just let the air out, when you release that tension. And for everybody, there's a different reason to be upset about it, right? Like, for example, let's say I tell you, can you relax your belly? Like, completely let it hang out. Might be aesthetically not looking nice, right? If you want to look nice, we do the opposite. But most of us cannot actually relax the belly anymore. Like, fully relax it and make it soft. We are holding that tension all day long. And so we are squeezing the organs, we are not breathing properly, but it also has effects on the lower back. And, we could go into the muscles when we use our exhalation muscles. And then use those muscles. You can do that with me, right? Just exhale actively. Keep those muscles active and now try to inhale. It's not really possible, right? You immediately have to go into your chest.
Yeah.
Those exhalation muscles, many of us use them to stabilize the core. Because also, core, you have to stabilize, you have to be active. This is not a proper way to engage the core. It actually stops the breathing. So the diaphragm cannot create the pressure. It cannot breathe, but also it cannot create the pressure to stabilize the lower spine. And the exhalation muscles are also squeezing your back. So when you do that and you touch your back, you can actually feel all the muscles around the spine activating. So now your lower back cannot move properly. And now that affects your hip stiffness. It affects your upper spine. It affects the weakest part in the spine, which now has to move even more because the other parts are not moving properly, and so on and so on. But also, for example, athletic performance is affected. So, for example, if someone breathes through the nose while running or while being on a stationary bike, they did those tests, the same resistance going only breathing through the nose versus only breathing through the mouth, there was a huge difference in blood pressure, in heart rate. So just by breathing through the nose, their blood pressure and heart rate went down. Now, what does that mean? They can, of course, go much longer if they learn to do that habitually. Right? At the beginning, of course, you have to slow down a little bit so you can manage to breathe through the nose, because there might be a subjective feeling of, I'm suffocating, I cannot breathe as much as before. But if you go through those 2-3 weeks of adjusting the pattern, actually you're getting more air down where it needs to be. You can keep breathing slowly. You can keep using this most efficient muscle of breathing. And therefore, your athletic performance goes up.
Yeah, just recently I heard Djokovic, the tennis player, saying that if there is one skill that he would, share with others that is crucial for success in sport and everything, it's breathing.
Yeah.
So.
And of course, from a tennis perspective, it's all about your mind, right? Like, can you stay calm? Can you just forget about losing that last point and just focusing on that one moment that is coming now, which is essentially yoga, meditation, be present now, no matter what just happened, no matter what will happen in 5 minutes, just now is counting. And that's what breathing does. Like the moment you just are focused on exhaling, the moment you're just focused on the very inhalation you're doing right now, you cannot be anywhere else but with your breath and in that very moment. And that's why, to come back to, my ideal way of improving your breathing or mastering your breath, how I called my programs, Master Your Breath Academy as for the teachers, and like to learn how to teach that, and Master Your Breath course to learn to breathe. It's not just learning the 6 principles of breathing and applying them through everyday life, but also establishing a breathing, a breath work, a pranayama practice. You can call that whatever you want. Because when you sit down, with every new activity and just spend the first 1 minute or eventually just the first 5 seconds to, okay, I'm breathing again nicely. Now I'm starting it. At the beginning it starts, you need a minute to get back to all the little details you wanted to remember. But then once you can do it, you just do it. Like, okay, I'm upright, I'm breathing down here, I'm breathing through my nose. I'm good. 5 seconds, 2 seconds, right? But in order to learn about the muscles that are doing the breathing for you, in order to learn how to control the length of the exhalation, the length of the inhalation, a breathwork practice helps. And so we are doing in this course, we are learning a breathwork practice that you can do for 2 minutes, 5 minutes, 10 minutes or longer every morning. So it puts you already into that nice state that you were explaining so nicely. It loosens up your whole body. So now when you focus on that joyful alignment, or when you try to connect to your diaphragm to do the breathing for you throughout the day, you have already done it in the morning. And so during this breathwork practice, we use the whole lung capacity. We are breathing with a specific ratio. Like in yoga, usually it's 1 to 2. So exhaling for double the length of the inhalation. And by doing that, by trying to breathe more than usual, like in terms of filling the lungs fully, and by trying to expand that ratio, also in length. So you start off maybe with 4 seconds in, 6 seconds out. So 1 to 1.5 ratio. Then it becomes 4-8. And then it becomes 5-10. And then 6-12. And then so on, so on, so on. And eventually you start adding breath holds, if it's working nicely. You learn a lot on the way, right? So can you exhale for 5 seconds? Well, some people cannot. They cannot just, right? It seems simple, but a lot of people cannot do that. But maybe you can do that. I know you can. Can you breathe out for 10 seconds? Can you breathe out for 15, for 20 seconds? And if I continue asking, at some point you will say no. Now, why can't you breathe out for 20 or 30 seconds? You can probably hold your breath for 20 seconds or 30 seconds. So maybe it's your posture. Maybe the diaphragm just starts getting tense at some moment. Now, why is it getting tense at some moment? Maybe it's just short. Like a muscle, can be short, like too much tension. And if it's your hamstring, you cannot fold forward fully. If it's your diaphragm, it just means that if it's stiff, it's already kind of like this. While if it's completely fully without tension, it might be like this. Right? If it's fully relaxed like this, and that feels neutral to me, now if I inhale, I have a lot of movement possibility. Just like with the hamstring that is completely relaxed, no tension in it, and I can fold forward and pick something up from the floor, no problem. Versus short hamstring, there's some tension. It's not that the hamstring by itself is short, it just, the nervous system creates this tension reflex that makes you not feel tension before you reach the floor with your hand. So if that's with the diaphragm, it might be like this. And now I'm inhaling, and it's already fully engaged. And exhaling. Right? So, but it might also be emotions. Like every time I try to exhale more than 6 seconds, some emotion comes up. Okay, there's something to deal with. But let's say it's just a tense diaphragm. Now I can start massaging the diaphragm, or I can learn certain kriyas. In yoga they are called kriyas, but a Western term might be tension releasing techniques. So now I learn, just like with the hamstring where I do a forward bend, I can do a technique where I draw the diaphragm up passively and stretch it out. And the same is true for the throat area and tongue area, where, through or placing the tongue on the upper palate and, getting the stretch into the tongue. And that opens up all that area. It creates release in the jaw. It creates, it opens up the nostrils and the sinuses. So, if I have a lot of mucus there, or if I just feel a lot of inflammation here, that opens up. And so through the various techniques that you learn and that you do in your 5, 10, 15-minute morning practice, a lot of things start happening. The belly starts relaxing, the digestive organs get some release, and, stuck stuff that is lying along your intestines starts getting moved out. Again, that means your posture might change. That means emotions come up. In therapy, they say when the best way of starting a therapy is fasting and a lot of flushing of your intestines. Because if you are constipated, it's hard to go through therapy. You're holding on to all those things physically and mentally and emotionally. Now, the therapist cannot work with you because you're just tight. If you do it on a physical level, that you release that stuff, mentally and emotionally it can happen, right? And so as you do all these techniques where you move the digestion, you move the intestines, you essentially in this whole area do a lot of squeezing and releasing. And so all the organs get squeezed, released. Fresh blood pushing in, old blood, old stuff, old toxins getting pushed out. Your whole lymphatic system gets kind of flushed and moved along. There's certain techniques like Kapalabhati where you do. Now, again, doing that for 20 hours a day, not good. But doing it in the morning after you wake up and adding after that some minimal breathing, meaning it doesn't create an over breathing effect. You move your whole digestive system, you move your whole abdominal region. While you learn it, you learn to separate upper and lower belly so that you can actually pump from down here without squeezing up here. Most people that start, they cannot separate. They are squeezing up here. Now we could go into chakras or into nervous system, plexi, where, of course, if you're constantly squeezing your power center, how you're supposed to be active and intentional throughout the day. So you see how I'm you do one thing on the physical level, but it has strings attached to everything. Even, when, do things like these kind of things, of course, there's a stretch on the tongue and the throat, and it opens up the airways, but then all your cranial nerves are connected there. There's a lot of hypersensitivities that we are carrying around. So some people, you tell them, you take the water and you, like the salty water, and then you put it into one nostril and out the other. They're like, I cannot do that, right? And other people are like, yeah, sure, let me try it. And then, okay, now you put the string in, you get it out of your mouth, and you do that with the rubber string. Again, some people might be like, yeah, let me try. And other people are like, that's, yucky. But why is it yucky? Because you're connecting to yourself. Nothing in your body should be yucky to you. Should create an emotional, disgust, So all that starts releasing, but the cranial nerves as well. If you take a spoon and you put it in your mouth and touch the root of your tongue that you can still see, not down in your throat, but just a little more in, you shouldn't immediately shouldn't get that reflex. If you, of course, push it all the way in, yes, but not just by touching the little deeper of your tongue. but most people get it. So that's why I say that's a hypersensitivity, and it's connected to overly active cranial nerves. And so by doing all these techniques, like with the water, like with the pumping, which also frees your sinuses, also the primary, like that humming thing, vibrates the sinuses, releases tension there. And so, and you know, we talked a lot about the eye exercises where you move your neck, and like a lot of people, they cannot gaze over one side, keep the gaze there, move all the way over, and as they come back, still gaze to the right. The eye starts kind of like, you know, squeezing, and like I have to look where I'm going, and it doesn't stay calm. So all these cranial nerves are not working, and that of course goes into effect into all the situations you go through daily. And so coming back to what you said, as you work on all these things and you actually commit yourself to every day 10 minutes, just go through 2-3 of those preparatory exercises, and just 5 minutes maybe of inhaling, exhaling for double. Can be very simple, not even adding, you know, some nostril manipulations of breathing in through one nostril only. And then doing it for 2 weeks or 4 weeks, it's like, wow. Because like I was just trying to get a little summary, the cranial nerves release, the digestive system releases, the lymphatic system moves. Maybe, you know, you start drinking a lot also, so you get enough hydration into your body again. All of a sudden, the darkness that was there, or the stress or the tension, slowly starts evaporating. And then from that place on, now I have questions. Now what can I do more? Now new challenges started coming up. Now what do I do with that? But so the process is the thing. Not, okay, I have this one technique that helps with blood pressure, but rather, wow, so when I change the way I breathe, and when I have this 10 minutes of breathing practice and some techniques along with that, tension releasing techniques, all of a sudden things start happening.
Yeah, I'm glad to have you here to talk about this stuff, because I think today we have an explosion of breathworks, all kinds of breathworks and everything. And I like actually to give it the proper name when you put it in the context, like pranayama, because pranayama is control of the energy in the body. So now people are usually taking some kind of breathwork for something. But this sounds like a well-rounded and complete system. It's not only like, you know, you take a pill for this or that, because there is a lot of it to it. It's not only about, you know, the organs. It's about the dynamics, the energy, So this is why I like how you connect all things. And I heard from you that Tom is really detailed about every dimension of this kind of work. It's not only, you know, the mechanics of breathing, but the energy, the perception, everything that actually changes in the process.
Yeah, thank you.
I had to share what I experienced, you know, honestly.
Yeah,
that's it. And I mean, interesting thing about this is if one thinks about it, you know, when people are recommending some movement practice or some meditation or whatever, objection would be in many cases, I don't have time. I don't have time because meditation, this is half an hour in the morning, which I don't have, or half an hour in the evening when I'm tired, then I cannot do it. It's the same thing with running or with whatever kind of movement practice. But the breathing is different because we need to breathe all the day.
Yeah.
And I never thought about it sooner. I mean, before. And then I realized, okay, even if I become conscious enough, put myself in joyful alignment and just become aware, or I can add a little bit, extend my exhale. I can do it wherever and whenever. During this podcast, whenever. So it doesn't require additional time actually to taste the benefits of changing the breathing patterns.
Yeah. Yeah, totally true.
Yeah,
I mean, that's
and it's not also only about breathing itself or changing something, or it's clarity of mind. It's why do we drink coffee? Now I mentioned cigarettes, but why do we drink coffee? In order to become more awake or more clear in our thinking. Well, breathing can affect that as well.
Yeah.
Or any activity in life.
Yeah.
And that's, amazing thing. Doesn't require additional resources.
Well, not even talking about all this time you save in, the fights and the, making up after, and, stress at work, and then, the consequences that you have to deal with if, something goes wrong, or,
it seems like when you're completely relaxed and present, it's like the time just expands. It's like you're not, in a rush or under stress where you're all tight and what should I do next? But it's like, okay, I'm here, and it's like you have time for everything. It's the shift. It's a huge shift in how you perceive time as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, just thinking of going back to this traffic light thing. If I was stopping at the traffic light for 10 seconds and I was answering my messages for 10 seconds, my perception of this time is extremely short. And I'm rushing the whole time. I'm rushing through the streets. I'm rushing while I was sitting. But if I didn't do it, if I was for 10 seconds, I was paying attention to this one breath maybe that I did in this 10 seconds.
Mm-hmm.
This was relaxed time.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly. And there is another level of, you can, check out with scrolling or something, but you can also focus on the fucking traffic light and say, I'm in a hurry, I have to, and it lasts for eternity,
Yeah.
And this is the middle way, having the breath here and just being with it, and it's perfectly as it should be.
Yeah, absolutely. And I guess, we tend to overlook the whole thing because this is so here, available to anyone. And I always tend to think, if I do something great, or if I do something difficult, or if I need to experience this or that in order to, earn a privilege or a right, to feel differently.
Yeah.
But when it's so available, given, then it's, come on, this is nothing.
Yeah.
While it isn't.
Yeah. Yeah.
It creates intimacy and embodiment, right? So if I'm, looking here, or if I'm looking at, I'm swearing at the traffic light for being red, I mean, you can see that all the time, right? Like somebody bumps me on the street when walking, or when in a team meeting or whatever, like we are always reacting to the external thing. And we're always kind of trying to respond or react, right? Not respond, but just being busy outside, dealing with the outside. Versus if you're like, I'm within myself, I'm connected to myself, and now, our partner talking to us, and it's like, I can actually hear you. I can just be with whatever you're expressing. May that be good things or bad things, maybe they're complaining about us, but it's still like, can I just be with that? Or they are telling us that they love us, and it's like, I can fully be with that. But then also when I'm just with myself, I'm feeling depressed, I'm feeling sad. But I cannot acknowledge that I feel sad when I'm like, I'm not good today, but I'm there, I'm not here. Or, with my kid, and he's like, he's upset. And now I just feel my inner pain because I don't want him to feel bad. And now I'm like trying to fix things instead of, can I just first be with him, which means I have to first be connected with myself and creating that space for him to fully be angry, fully be sad, fully be happy. And now whatever's needed. Do I need to open my hands and give him a hug? Do I need to smile at him? Do I have to just ask him, you want to be by yourself? Whatever it might be. And the same is true for anything else, like with people that we are not so connected to. But if I'm embodying myself, I'm fully connected to myself, I can deal with whatever's coming, but in a co-creative instead of reactive way. Like instead of just being like thrown around by what the external situation needs from me, I'm coming from a place of, I'm part of this, I'm co-creating, I'm stable. And then from that place on, I need less therapy. But why? In all kinds of levels. Well, okay, oh wow, today I'm feeling my belly really engaged. Or my pelvic floor is not releasing. Or, oh, I feel my neck kind of like, it got cold, last week 30 degrees, today 15. My neck is a little pulled up. If I'm not aware of that, and now, I'm walking around like this and I'm getting more and more tense like this, and maybe now it's not just the weather, but, my relationship makes me feel like that. My boss makes me feel like that. Driving in traffic makes me feel like that. And now, all of a sudden, I get neck pain. Maybe it's 5 years later. And now I'm like, okay, I have this neck pain. Okay, I'm getting a pill, a little better. 2 months later, okay, I really have to go to the doctor. The doctor just prescribes me more painkillers maybe, or maybe sends me to some physiotherapy, but I'm not changing what actually caused the problem, right? And now I'm going to a chiropractor and they give an adjustment. Feel good. 2 months later, it's back, or a month. Because the root problem was I'm not connecting to myself. I'm not noticing those small things. And so whatever I'm trying to fix is something that I'm fixing 5 years after the problem occurred, right? So now I have to ideally go back and say, let me connect to my belly, learn all these small details. Like, what is the joyful alignment? It's the opposite of stress and running away, right? If I'm seeing a wild animal that tries to kill me, I'm tensioning my fingers, shortening my neck, closing my chest because I want to protect myself. I'm tensioning my jaw, no digestion, getting the eyes focused for like I'm running as fast as possible, or I have to check where the fist is getting thrown at me. My pelvic floor engages. I'm breathing a little faster because throwing off some carbon dioxide is actually great if you want to run after really, really quickly as fast as long as possible. And then you can go back to relaxed, right? But we tend to stay in this fight or flight situation for the rest of the day, right? Because
without animals.
Exactly, because we are getting an email, because we are thinking about the situation that happens tomorrow, a conversation we have to have, and every 15 minutes there's a different trigger for that alignment, right? So now if I relax my pelvic floor, relax my belly, breathe diaphragmatically, open heart, broad shoulders, fingers can move, shoulders could move, neck is free, face is relaxed, I can blink, I can swallow, lips are soft, jaw is relaxed. Not that I have to do all of that all the time, but if I take a couple of days to connect to these things, I will not have the most relaxed belly ever. But now I can apply that again and again throughout every day, every situation. When I'm sitting in the meeting and I'm like listening to my boss and he talks about kicking out people and maybe I'm one of them, can I relax my belly? Can I relax my shoulders? And all of a sudden, I stay connected to whatever comes up. So I'm not suppressing the fear or whatever is coming up, but I'm breathing through it. And any emotion as it comes can be released unless I push it down into the physical body. And so, I might be afraid, but I can now, 10 minutes later, because I moved through that fear and I fully felt it, I'm not suppressing, I can feel the fear. Okay, now it has passed. Now, okay, let's focus on what could I do? What can I ideally do to deal with that situation? But it's coming from, again, a place of how can I co-create that situation and instead of just being the victim of whatever.
Yeah, exactly. And that's important because you don't have to do all the practices all the time. Because when you're connected and the breath is a way to connect, basically, then you know these little shifts that are happening in your consciousness and your body. And then you can apply certain practice as needed for the neck or for the pelvic floor. So this connection is important just as in meditation. So it's important to see the thing or emotion or thought arising and then not being caught in it because you're seeing it arising. You're not identified with the thought or with the emotion. You're seeing it at the proper time before it gets too strong and too powerful. And then you can actually, see it from some peaceful point or place and basically do something with it or just let it pass.
Exactly.
But if you're not connected, you're, getting caught in whatever is happening, and then you're building on this tension and everything. So I like the idea of breath being the tool for this connection. It's always there. It's the most appropriate object it can be.
And I mean, like you mentioned, meditation, but also yoga asana practice, for example, or any physical practice. But let's say yoga practice because it's with the intention of becoming more aware. If you do the physical yoga practice, it's easy to be just focused on the body. If you're doing meditation practice, it's easy to kind of get thrown into the focus of, okay, it's all about the mind and calming the mind. And the breath needs to be with both to make it a holistic practice in a way. Like you can use your breath to calm down the mind for meditation, but also deal with whatever comes up through the meditation, right? Like your emotions or whatever. And the same is true for the physical practice. Let's say yoga practice, you move and your breath gets stuck in a certain posture. And now, why can't you breathe anymore? So you need the breath to find the asana or find the way into the posture, right? And also not get over identified with the practice, right? Like, oh, I just want to do this, but no. And so there's inhalation and exhalation, right? And so you could say inhalation is all about activity and doing, and exhalation is all about surrendering. So if you are in a certain posture for 5 breaths, it's not that you're just there for 5 breaths. No, it's 5 times. Can you inhale, create attention, create space, and exhale, can you release into that space? So it creates this balanced quality of whatever you're doing. Or you could say, inhalation, activity, masculinity. So, somebody trying to be very masculine, they are forcing a lot about the inhalation, and maybe they forgot or they unlearned how to exhale, or they do an exhalation in a very masculine way, like again with activity instead of the feminine. And I'm just talking energetically, obviously, not gender-wise, right? The surrendering, softening quality of the exhalation. And so just focusing too much on one, like the inhalation, if I just really focus on inhalation, at some point after 2-3 breaths, I cannot inhale anymore. I cannot do what I want to do because without the opposing pole, it's not working. So you want to inhale more? Exhale more, right? You want to be able to release more through the exhalation, actually keep the nice part of the inhalation. So, some people, they cannot exhale for long. They're like, I'm done. I cannot exhale more. Okay, so spend more time researching and exploring the inhalation, right? Right, there's so many aspects of creating this fullness of the inhalation. And now again, if I collapse the chest, I'm almost done. But if I keep that nice part of the last step of the inhalation, I can go on and on and on. If I just keep that nice part of the lifting of the chest, right? And then only at the end, I might release it. So, and again, that comes from allowing the process to happen for a couple of days in a row, where you actually get very curious about how can I expand that exhalation? How can I expand the inhalation? What am I missing here? And then asking questions.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we rarely ask those questions because breathing is so ubiquitous that we don't even think about it, you know.
Yeah.
But when I saw some things, and for example, the exercises now you were mentioning, a little bit of it, you know, then I thought, and when I experienced it on myself, wow, you know, I never thought this was possible, you know, it's like, poof, let's dive into this, you know, this is crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I would like to ask you a few questions, maybe practical questions, to help someone who's maybe struggling with something. And I would like you to also to present the education that you're holding a little bit in more detail. Basically, I have only one question that is practical. Maybe you have some, maybe I'll get some ideas later. But how do you unclog the nose if you have a problem with breathing in the morning? So let's say I had situations when I want to breathe and I noticed that my breath through the nose is not as good as it should be. It's not very opened. So what do you do?
Okay. First question, of course, could be, is it because it's like there's no space, or because there's a lot of mucus? And now, of course, not short term, but like eventually, if it's a lot of mucus, you know, is there some inflammation in your body so that your body creates the mucus? So there is some aspects like that I don't want to go into now.
Yeah.
Now, just to free the nose in the morning, one thing, of course, is that I want to just mention, I'm a big fan of sleep tape if somebody breathes through the mouth during the night. Because if you breathe through your mouth all night long, naturally your nose will be a little clogged. And when you close your mouth with sleep tape, or with just some surgical tape, you know, like €1 in any pharmacy, then you're in a way forced to breathe through your nose. And the more you breathe through the nose, the more it will open up. Then as you can try to flush the nose with physiological fluid, to just physically open it up and remove any stuff that is in there. And that might actually be a protocol. Wake up in the morning, do that. Maybe also in the evening, do it additionally, because, you know, as we drive through town, live in a city, there's a lot of dust, a lot of particles that we inhale that get stuck here, that create then a productive situation where mucus is created for the body just tries to get rid of stuff. Then you can, just like I was mentioning before, you know, with this, if you feel resistance, we focus on it usually, like, I cannot breathe. We make it more and more strong, and you even heard now, I could tell myself, oh, I'm clogged up. So bring the focus into the throat as if you are whispering an M, and then breathe in the same way. And maybe there's already less resistance. Then what you can try is increasing the amount of carbon dioxide in your nostril area. And so there's this technique where you essentially, you inhale, you exhale. Let's do one more. Inhale calmly. Exhale. And then just stop breathing. Close your nose. And go a little up and down. Left and right. While pausing the breath until you cannot go any further. Breathe in again. If you do that, I'm sorry that you didn't follow along now. You might notice how there's almost like a warming sensation around your nostrils, where they want to open up. So this combination of moving your neck, closing your nose, and holding the breath after the exhalation, until you really feel, okay, I want to inhale, and then waiting a little longer, kind of opens it up a little bit. Almost like that feeling when you have the nose spray, and it's like kind of that feeling of warmth and prickliness.
Yeah.
That's the same feeling that you get when you just pause your breath for long enough.
Okay.
And then also kind of just physically doing that a couple of times, and then pausing the breath will, and now we don't want to do that, but like really throwing out stuff.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Those are simple things that you that you can do.
Okay, thanks. To me, it's always sometimes it's mucus, but I think I have no space. Sometimes it's like something gets really increased in some. I don't know how to actually say it in English. It gets clogged, but it's not something.
Like it's narrowing.
Yeah, it gets natečeno, как се каже.
Swollen.
Swollen, yeah.
Something is swollen.
Yeah. And again, there's a lot of connections to, let's say, diet and inflammation that comes from that. And and the last thing that I didn't mention is humming. So inhaling and making it so that you make the sound here, but you feel a vibration here, which it's not like you go from 0 to 100 like completely open, but if you do that as a thing that you maybe do 3 times a day in moments where even when you do desk work you can hum. Maybe if you're in a big office and lots of people around you don't want to do that, but even then you can do it mildly and just feel that vibration. Again, it's about the process and getting into a habit of doing things that are good for you, like pausing your breath, manipulating your nose, moving the neck, which all has an effect.
Okay, thanks. Yeah. I'll try. I'll let you know.
Good.
The other thing I wanted to ask you, I usually get some. This is something that's following me through my whole life. This tension around my diaphragm. And I was working with Marco on some massages. And do you have any, suggestions besides the massage, how to relax the diaphragm when it gets really, to me, when I sit in meditation, when I get really calm and peaceful, this becomes the really strong point, and not only strong, but it gets really stiff. And with diving deeper into meditation, relaxing, this gets even stronger, like
more tense.
More tense, yeah.
Okay.
So I don't want to,
No,
it's
a great question.
Yeah.
And of course, I could say now, it's ideally now we could check what is actually happening when you do the breathing. Maybe lying you down, checking the tension. But just in terms of what tends to happen is, and I was already telling you about, how you activate the core through the exhalation muscles, and that affects. It inhibits the diaphragm and it engages the lower back in a not good way, like in an unnecessary way. But then, if you're sitting in meditation, and maybe your hips are a little stiff, so the knees are pointing out, or you use a lot of cushions to sit up. The muscles in the legs and then through the psoas connect all the way to the diaphragm. So now, when you're sitting like this and your hips are closed, there's a lot of tension on the psoas. And through the tension on the psoas, it's pulling on your diaphragm. And then maybe your meditation teacher says, like sit up tall. And now you do this, where you get into a back bend. So now your pelvis tilts forward, which is supported by the psoas, and all these muscles engage even more and pull on the diaphragm. And now, because in meditation you just surrender, don't think about your body, it's all about meditating. you override your body telling you, I'm not comfortable. Which, I'm not saying even that's bad. It's good to be above your body in a way that you don't take every little thing as a reason to now break the meditation. But now, you're a consistent, disciplined person. Now you're doing your meditation every day. Your body cannot sit in that position, but you force it, right? I mean, again, no evil intended, but you're just forcing your body to sit in meditation every day for 15 minutes, feet fall asleep, etc. But you're like, no, I'm stronger. Now you create a situation where the longer you sit, the more that happens. And now, your diaphragm gets more tense and tense.
Yeah, it gets chronical.
And this gets chronical. And now actually you might override it to a point where it's like, oh, wow, it's not complaining anymore. But your body just learned how to deal with it. And now we want to change that, so we have to break that pattern. Which means breaking all your accomplishments, right? Like finally my body stopped complaining and now I come and tell you to sit differently, And now, of course, all that tension that was accumulated now comes out and you're like, no. Or even, oh, now I have pain again. That's not working what you're telling me, So, again, if we learn based on the 6 principles to change the patterns of breathing throughout the whole day, we acknowledge all the moments throughout the day where this might be happening, and then we might have to adjust. Like when you go running and you have to go a little slower because all of a sudden you're not getting as much air and you feel out of breath earlier because you're changing the pattern. Long term, it will be better. And the same, meditation. Now maybe you have to sit and, like sit with your feet down, like in a normal chair, and meditate. Or you might lie in meditation, even though it might make you fall asleep. Whatever it might be, you change according to the new thing that you are incorporating, and then eventually you can sit again. Or, now you notice, okay, I actually have to come to yoga to open my hips, to stabilize my knee, so that can happen. Like I can sit like this, but my hips are not complaining anymore. And that might be another 1 year until that happens, or 5 years. So, yeah.
Yeah, I can actually relate almost to everything that you said right now. And I also feel the tension in the psoas. And when I was practicing Muay Thai, I felt very, very strong pain in my hips. So obviously this whole situation right here is causing some tensions, which are not directly related to maybe Manipura, but it's the whole sklop. How do you say sklop?
I don't know. The whole part of
mechanism.
the body.
Yeah. I mean, everything in your body is connected, exactly. So, down to like, okay, how do you engage your thighs? Obviously, your hips have to be open, but also your ankles have to be mobile and your feet have to engage. Now, if you're wearing normal shoes and your toes are getting pushed in unnaturally, your feet cannot engage, and therefore ankles, knees, hips, psoas, diaphragm can all be affected through that. Or, with women, high heels or the shoes. And, your body position. I mean, even just being in this position affects your diaphragm and creates tension. And, even people coming to yoga, we are constantly compensating, right? Like we want to do this, right? Maybe I turn a little bit, right? So I want to do this. And I see, okay, my hand has to be above my head, but my shoulder is not doing it. What my shoulder is doing now, so it comes from the lower back, right? So now I'm constantly creating this thing in my lower back.
Yeah.
Or like my psoas is short because I'm sitting. Not because I'm sitting all day, but the pattern of sitting all day, the pelvis being pulled forward from an over tense psoas. Now in this position, and so but I don't want to be in this position, so now my lower back is compensating. Or my back body starts over tensioning so that the overtense psoas makes me not look funny. So now I have a very engaged glute, which might press onto my sciatic nerve. Now I get pain in my sciatia, but it's actually from the front of the body that creates tension in the back of the body that then creates tension in the sciatic nerve. So it's very all connected.
Yeah.
And and then, of course, you could bring it all the way back to why do you even think you have to stand like this?
Yeah.
Well, because I think then I look pretty. And, why do you think you have to look pretty like this? Because, whatever.
My father,
my mother, my grandparents.
You asked the question about this thing, and then we are at father and mother, and everything.
Yeah, I mean, so it always goes back, more and more. But just to bring that, because now we mentioned the whole, traumatic experience during childhood or during previous lives, whatever. What does it mean for the present moment? It doesn't. I mean, for me, it doesn't matter where it's coming from. But if you are exhaling and pausing your breath, and all of a sudden you get anxiety, it doesn't matter where that anxiety comes from, whether it's from bullying or from your mother or your father, or your umbilical cord was cut too early, or whatever people come up with. Can I feel that now? And can I maybe have a teacher or a therapist or whatever that allows me the safe space that I cannot create for myself yet? So I can allow myself to feel that. Okay. Can I exhale into that emotion? Okay. Can I allow that to go? Okay. Can I allow myself to cry now? Let it out. And okay, now I'm good. Or maybe I'm not good, and because now there's another emotion that comes out after that. And just giving myself that awareness and presence and
space for
space,
to release.
And eventually, it stops being so intense, hopefully. But it might take a while, because the longer we wait until we deal with these things, then the more stuff we have to bring out. The cleaning takes longer.
I mean, so you asked first.
No.
I mean, the second part that you mentioned, I was having on my mind as well, and that's how to start, how to begin. And now it, came to me that how important it is. So for someone who is interested in breathing and, in improvement of this, at least for me, it was very beneficial to breathe in front of you, in your presence, just being seen by you. And then, these things that you were mentioning now, that I didn't even notice myself. When you notice them, then I know what I can work on in order to do something. So for me, in order to start, it was very beneficial to be physically in the course, seen by you, and then, adjusted, or whatever the word would be. Like diagnosed.
Basically, you took words from my mouth. This is exactly what I wanted to say. When you started talking about how everything is connected and how people, do something, this is something that they cannot see themselves. Someone who knows how the mechanic works, how everything should work, should be there to diagnose, to correct, to instruct. So, which brings me to the program that you're running. And if you want to share with us how the program works, how long, how often.
So, I mean, so let's start with like physically being in the same room. Obviously, I have my Ashtanga Mysore classes, which I think we mentioned it last time, is this guided self-practice where you do Ashtanga Yoga. So the movement is happening, and I mean, just this morning, I had lots of people where I was like talking about what muscles are they engaging, and like taking them out of the actual Ashtanga practice and saying, okay, now lie down. Can you breathe here? Can you go into a half sit-up? Which muscles are engaging? Okay, those side muscles don't need to be engaged. Are you, thinking about engaging before you go up? Can you first inhale and come up versus, and then, And then, so that's the physical possibility to be in the same room. And then, of course, a lot I pick up from there and give as a direct feedback, or people come for a guided class, right? So, not a guided, like a private class. It's like one-on-one. Like you also started like this. I mean, you came to Mysore and then you said, okay, can we do it private?
Yeah.
And so then, of course, we can work one-on-one and check out the breathing, check out the movement, etc. Whatever is the need in that moment, right?
So it's happening here in your yoga shala.
Yeah, so in Zagreb, I have, we have GaiaYoga Shala in Zagreb, and there I teach. My wife teaches there, and I'm usually there in the morning. And then the second aspect is the Master Your Breath program, which I intentionally do online. Like I said, I want people to not say, okay, I have to now go to a shala. It's much better to say, okay, twice a week, 1 hour. Sometimes it's a little longer, sometimes it's a little shorter, because it really depends on also their need for input at a certain moment. But it gives this, okay, for 10 weeks, I just have to log in twice a week and then do my own thing. So it's really just to give the impulse that is needed to keep going and to catch any question, any uncertainty, or, okay, I feel back pain with whatever I'm doing. Okay, I can see it through the video. And while people are doing the Master Your Breath program, I'm happy to, jump on the phone or have a short consultation, even apart from the group sessions. And I tell people, come into Mysore. I can check you out in person if they are in Zagreb, or if they can be in Zagreb once. But like I said, what I noticed, I actually held myself back many years to say, no, this needs to be in person. But then I noticed even people in person working with me sometimes don't get it. Like, if I have a group of 20 people, there's always 1 or 2 people who I just keep saying it and it just doesn't arrive. I mean, it's not that they don't progress in some ways, but certain details don't arrive. And so I was like, well, and even if it's like, instead of 1 out of 20, now it's 2 out of 20 if it's online, why would I mean, they're still getting lots of benefits. So not every detail has to be taught to everyone or can be heard by everyone, right? So I said, okay, I will stop that belief of myself that it has to be in person. And yeah, I'm really happy with the effects or the results that I have from this online program.
Sorry,
so
is it live?
It's live,
or
yes.
is recorded, pre-recorded?
There is some pre-recorded content just so people have the ability to catch the main ideas, the main information, or like, to prepare for the live lecture. Like, okay, I just want to listen 10 minutes for something that is like all the most important information. And now I listen to the live thing and I can absorb it much better. Like it's a supportive, supplemental thing. There's some content that you can always access, but then it's mainly the live sessions where the teaching happens. And so that happens 10 weeks, Master Your Breath program for everybody to improve their breathing and, daily life patterns, breathwork practice, a personal prescription at the end of the program. Now you continue. And then, if you have to, after some time, some question, can I change my practice? Can you update it? I'm always happy to do. So it's really as that foundational thing. Now you have a new level of breathing. Now go, because it takes you. This is for the rest of your life. You can improve your breathing, but you have to start at some point. And this 10-week thing is like, not too short, not too long, to really build that foundation. And now from this new level of health, of body awareness, embodiment, you can grow in whatever direction you want. Whether it's athletic, performance, or just emotional well-being, focus and like clarity in life, yoga practice, whatever it might be. That's the 10-week Master Your Breath program. And then after that, I have the Master Your Breath Academy, which of course is for teachers, for coaches, for yoga teachers, but also trainers. You guys do this body-oriented psychotherapy, right? So I guess for that, it would be great to have a very deep understanding of the breath and how to use it. Like you were saying before, what do I do maybe at the beginning of the session? What do I do at the peak of the session? And maybe what do I give as a homework based on what I see in terms of breathing patterns, in terms of where the body is stuck and where the body is already open. And within that Master Your Breath Academy, everybody goes through the Master Your Breath program, maybe for the second time, right? So you did the Master Your Breath program. And then when you did the Master Your Breath Academy, you did the program again, but now with different ears and eyes, because now you were looking at it from like, okay, as a teacher, like how is Tom teaching? At the beginning, it's like, okay, breathe in, breathe out, move this part, move that part. You cannot focus on what am I doing as a teacher. But when you go through it the second time and with the idea of teaching it yourself, you're like, okay, so today he used a different phrasing, or he did the same thing. He repeated some things, he changed some other things. He positioned himself in front of the camera like this or like that. When he's showing the belly, he's doing this. When he's showing the breathing, he's, whatever it might be. It's a different awareness when you are a teacher trainee versus a practitioner. So I let people go through it again, but some people didn't do the Master Your Breath program before, so they are learning on like within that academy. But then there's additional content to consume and also to then apply, right? So there's a lot of like Zoom split rooms, how do you call it, breakout rooms, where now, now Marco teach Marco how to do this kind of breathing practice. And then, you reverse it and then you get feedback from each other. And then how do you actually teach that? So actually people have to find a trainee, so to say, or a student. And now they have to put them through a 4-week breathing improvement program where they get, all the protocols and what to do. But then you can already add your own perspective to it. So some trainer might find a, within their resistance training or, weight training practice, they might find a student and they are building their breathing patterns, but based on their understanding of training. They're using the 6 principles, but, they're coming from their niche. And a yoga teacher might use it in a different way. But even within yoga teachers, there's like, I have a group of pregnant ladies. I have a group of 18-year-old students. I have a group of whatever, And so each one might apply that protocol in a slightly different way. Then they, of course, also learn much more about the physiology of breathing and actually explaining it also to each other. Because what I also noticed a lot in, we have been running the teacher training, just the general yoga teacher training for many years. And what I see a lot is like people listen to a lecture about physiology or about anatomy or about philosophy. But then if you ask them 2 months later, they cannot explain it. Because it made sense, what they heard, but they cannot teach it to someone else. So I put a lot of attention on people actually being able to explain it to each other. So they also have to rethink it again. But then when you hear it from someone else, you hear it from me, you hear it from another student, you have to say it yourself. And now your understanding has increased, but maybe you also acknowledge 2-3 little details that you were not very sure about how to explain it, or that you didn't even really fully understand it. And now there's more growth through that. But also I want people to not just say, okay, this is Tom's technique and now I'm applying it. Like I was saying before, you need to have an understanding what technique is appropriate at what moment. So I want people also to say, okay, this is Wim Hof breathing and this is the oxygen advantage and Buteyko breathing and all the other techniques that are out there. And my take on it, what is the technique doing? At what point is it good? Maybe what of that technique is within the Master Your Breath approach that I teach? Pranayama, and what is the approach here? different pranayama techniques and why do you use it, and maybe even how they are called differently in different traditions. So people, when they hear, well, what do you think about Wim Hof? They actually have an opinion themselves. Whether they say it's great or not, but, like I said, are you breathing from here or are you breathing from here? Do you forget almost about the breath hold and just focus on the hyperventilation part? Or do you use both of them together, and etc.? So having that real understanding. And then, because I really want breathing to be shared with lots of people, and, if I teach 1,000 people how to teach breathing and those 1,000 people reach another 1,000 people, that's already 1 million people, right? I cannot do that by myself. So I'm really excited about sharing that with as many people as possible so they can share it. So we reach the most amount of people, because, if everybody, think of all the people that are depressed, that are full of anxiety, and, they just know, I can get myself back with just 2 minutes of a breath snack kind of thing, how the world would already be different, right? And so this is kind of the purpose behind it, or my vision of the future, vision and mission. And so I want people to not just, okay, I will get now my diploma in breathing, so I have that as another diploma that I can put on the wall, but rather, okay, now actually go out and teach it. So what do you need? What do you need right now to do the first step? Like, can you teach a workshop about breathing next week? Or can you incorporate that into your MenCore workshop series? And in what way can you do it? And will you actually do it? And so we kind of, obviously it's a constant improvement, but I'm working on building that platform so people have that as well within the course. So it's not like, okay, I'm done with the course, I get my diploma, but I'm done with the course and taught my first workshop or group training or whatever. So I'm actually incorporating it already, which also makes the whole course more, return on investment focused, because it's like, do the course and I actually want you to teach it as fast as possible so that you get back the money that you invest, right? You need the investment to commit, but you also want to have that intention of already getting it back. Because I was as well like that. Within the yoga field, it's all about, you have to really be experienced. You need a lot of experience until you really become a teacher, until you can guide people. And I was stuck in keeping myself small. Like, I cannot teach this because I don't have enough experience yet. And of course, there's the opposite problem of, okay, I did a weekend workshop, now I'm teaching. It's a problem. But being humble, but at the same time putting yourself out there and being confident about what you know. And so I put all of that in the training and get people to, yes, you be humble, but also put yourself out there.
Because that's also the opportunity to grow as a teacher. You cannot grow as a teacher if you don't teach.
Yeah,
right?
Exactly true. And it's always, that if you just sit with someone for 5 minutes and let them breathe, you don't even have to do much. Just hold the space for them, let them breathe, let them exhale passively, and you change people's lives. And then, people come back and they're like, yeah, I did it with my sister, this 4-week program. She's a doctor. She's learning so many things. And it's like, nice, you wouldn't think I'm teaching a doctor how to breathe, as if they wouldn't know. But of course they know everything about the lungs and about the diseases of the lungs, but not necessarily how to breathe. Yeah. And if they know, they still forget it on a 24-hour shift. So yes, even they need it. So never think that this is something that the person that you're working on with already knows, because they don't, at least not practically.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, and also just to mention, speaking about practice and time investment and how much do we need, I really loved your approach, 80-20 principle, Pareto principle.
Yeah.
And how basically, now we were speaking for some time and we mentioned quite a few aspects of breathing, and one might think that in order to do something, it requires a lot of knowledge and a lot of time. But the way you found, actually you cherry-picked and you extracted the things that are most beneficial and that require in the same time a small investment. That was eye-opening for me. Because then I realized, okay, I might invest 10 minutes a day or even less if I'm using these moments throughout the day in order to get significant benefits, not small benefits, but significant benefits, and the way you structured it. I mean, this requires some experience and some practice, but yeah, it was beautifully done. And now I apply the same principle into other things that I'm doing. You know, how to get the most by investing a little, basically.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that, and I'm glad it comes across in that way and seems to actually work. Every time I do the course, I'm thinking how to, you know, make it better and how to make small changes, because I'm constantly thinking, it could be even simpler, could be even more to the point. So I'm glad that it already came across in that way, that it works.
It does.
But yeah, it's just like with everything. If we have that intention, we can always get a little better and get little details. But again, it comes always back to you have to be willing to do a little bit yourself, right? Like it's not like I'm handing you a free psoas or, you know, a free diaphragm. Here you go. That will be €1,000. You know, now you're healed. No, you have to do a little bit yourself. Right? I mean, people want that. Like, give me the thing. No, it doesn't work like that. Like just now, I'm doing this challenge in the yoga school, where for 2 weeks they have to come for every day. I mean, they don't have to. They sign up to do it, right? And so they come every day. And first of all, okay, now it dropped from 30 degrees to 10 degrees within those 2 weeks. But they signed up, so they still came, even though maybe their body said, oh no, now it's cold, I don't want to go. Which they would probably have done if it would be, okay, I'm coming to yoga when it suits me. But no, now it's a challenge, so they come every day. And the second thing is, you have to do it a couple of times to get to the point of even being open for a little detail that you otherwise would just not be able to hear. Like I can tell you, but you wouldn't hear it. You have to breathe for 2 weeks, and only then can you hear me when I say lengthen your lower back or whatever, you know, like a small detail. Or, you know, like if you stand, I don't know if I mess up the audio now, but, you know, if you stand with a little wider stance, there's a difference between squatting a little down and by bending your knees or by sitting your hips back. In both options, the knees will bend and the hips will bend. But if I think, let me squat down, I'm bending my knees, or I'm bending my hips, I'm sitting back with my hips, it will create a completely different way of stability. But to be able to be aware of that, you have to be involving yourself, not just getting information, but fed, you know, like spoon fed, but rather because now I moved myself, I came up with that internal drive myself. Now I can hear those little details.
Yeah. I mean, people have to develop this sense of interoception. It's not everyone is feeling the sensations and, you know, being aware of subtle sensations with all the movements. So it needs practice, definitely, and turning attention inwards to actually experience it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, maybe just to say, and I have a group on Facebook, Empower Yourself Through Breathwork, where I from time to time do like workshops where I get people, let's say, mentally and emotionally involved in the process of working on your breath, where I also give a lot of details on what happens when you change your breathing, kind of what we talked about today. So people can already kind of feel how it is working with their breath and working on themselves and working with me. And then from there, people say, okay, yeah, that's a great start. Now I want to engage in the mastery of breath process. And of course, the group is also to ask questions, and I share some information. Over the summer, I was a little quiet in the group, but now it will pick up again. So if people want to find me there and just join the group, they can. And then for the Mastery of Breath Academy, also there will be some some, let's say, free immersion workshop where I talk about why teach breathing, how can you benefit from having that as one more tool in your toolbox of being a yoga teacher, trainer, coach, whatever it might be. And also there, to kind of get into the topic, get into the work with me, because it also has to be, like some people listen to a teacher and they are like, oh my God, every word makes so much sense. And another person's like, I don't like his voice. I don't like his whatever it might be, right? So it has to match.
Have to fit.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And so people can find me on Instagram for that also, because the announcements will come through there.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you, Tom, for being with us, for sharing everything you know about. I mean, everything. some things about pranayama and breath. Hopefully, we'll see you again. Maybe talking deeper about Ashtanga Yoga.
Would be my pleasure.
Some details around it. And for you watching the podcast, everything Tom mentioned about the academy and the workshops and everything he does will be under the video, in the description of the video, all the links. If you like the podcast, share it, like it, subscribe to the channel. And thank you, everyone. Thank you, Marco. Thank you, Tom, again.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Bye.